The White House press briefing room buzzed with tension on a crisp morning in June 2025. Reporters filled the seats, cameras focused on the podium, and the air crackled with anticipation. White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt stepped up, her face set with determination. She was ready to defend the Trump administration's latest move, a controversial executive order on immigration that had sparked outrage across the nation. But today, she would face an unexpected challenge, one that would ignite a firestorm online and cement a moment in history. Leavitt adjusted the microphone, her voice steady but sharp. "Good morning, everyone. Let's get started. The President's executive order is clear. We're prioritizing American safety and sovereignty. The courts have no business interfering with the executive branch's constitutional authority to enforce immigration laws. Any judge who tries to block this is an activist. Plain and simple." A murmur rippled through the room. Reporters scribbled notes, sensing a storm brewing. One journalist, Peter Ducey from Fox News, raised his hand. "Karoline, you've called out judges before, like Judge Boasberg, for blocking the president's deportation plans. Now there's talk of Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson dissenting on a related case. Are you saying she's an activist too?" Leavitt's eyes narrowed. "I'm saying anyone who obstructs the president's lawful authority is overstepping. Justice Jackson's dissent in the Medina case, where she argued states shouldn't defund Planned Parenthood, shows she's more interested in pushing a liberal agenda than following the law. Her logic is weak, and her arguments don't hold up." The room fell silent for a split second. Then, from the back, a voice cut through. It was Sarah Maney, a photojournalist who rarely spoke at briefings but couldn't stay quiet today. "With all due respect, Ms. Leavitt, have you read Justice Jackson's dissent? She cited decades of precedent and statutory language. Are you dismissing her legal reasoning because it doesn't align with the administration's goals?" Leavitt's face tightened. "I don't need to read every word of a dissent to know it's flawed. The Supreme Court's majority ruled 6-3 against her. That speaks for itself. She's out of step with the law and with the American people." Sarah didn't back down. Justice Jackson's dissent was grounded in constitutional protections for individual rights. She argued the majority ignored clear Medicaid statutes. "You're calling her an activist, but isn't it possible you're just disagreeing with her interpretation?" Leavitt leaned forward, her voice rising. "Look, the American people elected President Trump to secure the border and protect our communities. Justices like Jackson, who throw up roadblocks, are playing politics, not law. Her dissent is just noise clickbait for liberals." The room erupted. Reporters shouted questions, but before Leavitt could respond, a new figure entered the fray. Supreme Court Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson had been invited to the briefing as part of a rare public engagement, a move orchestrated by the administration to showcase transparency. No one expected what came next. Jackson stepped to a microphone, set up for guest speakers, her presence commanding immediate attention. At 54, she carried herself with the poise of a seasoned jurist, her eyes sharp and her voice calm but firm. "Ms. Leavitt, I was invited here to discuss judicial independence, but I can't ignore what you just said. You've called my dissent noise and accused me of playing politics. I'd like to address that." Leavitt froze, clearly unprepared. The cameras zoomed in, capturing every moment. Jackson continued, her tone measured but cutting. "You claim I'm out of step with the law. Let's talk about the law. Then, in Medina v. Planned Parenthood, I dissented because the majority's ruling undermines the free choice of provider provision in Medicaid. That provision, enacted by Congress, ensures patients can choose their healthcare providers without state interference. My dissent cited the statute's text, its legislative history, and 40 years of precedent. Have you read the Medicaid Act, Ms. Leavitt?" Leavitt bristled, gripping the podium. "Justice Jackson, I'm not here to debate legal minutiae. My job is to communicate the president's policies, and the American people support those policies. Your dissent doesn't change the fact that the majority ruled against you." Jackson's eyes didn't waver. "The majority's ruling doesn't make it correct. My job is to interpret the law, not to rubber stamp the president's agenda." "You called my dissent clickbait. Let's be clear. I wrote 20 pages of legal analysis, citing cases like Gonzaga v. Dew and Armstrong v. Exceptional Child Center. I argued the majority's test risks erasing enforceable rights for millions of Americans. That's not noise, it's the Constitution at work." reporters scribbled furiously. Leavitt's face flushed. With all due respect, Justice, your dissent reads like a lecture, not law. You accuse the majority of a parade of horribles. That's not judicial restraint, it's grandstanding. Jackson's voice sharpened, though she never raised it. Ms. Leavitt, I used the phrase parade of horribles to describe the majority's exaggerated fears about the implications of my interpretation. It's a term of art, used in legal writing for decades. If you'd read my dissent, you'd know I backed every point with case law. You're dismissing my work without engaging with it. That's not an argument, it's a soundbite. The room was electric. Ducey jumped in again. Justice Jackson, are you saying the press secretary is misrepresenting your position? Jackson paused, choosing her words carefully. I'm saying Ms. Leavitt is entitled to her opinion, but she's not entitled to mischaracterize my judicial record. I've written nearly 600 opinions in my career, from district court to the Supreme Court. Each one is grounded in law, not politics. If you disagree with my reasoning, cite the cases. Show me where I'm wrong. Leavitt shot back, her voice laced with frustration. I don't need to cite cases to know the American people want secure borders and less government overreach. Your dissent in Medina protects organizations like Planned Parenthood, which many Americans oppose. You're out of touch. Jackson didn't flinch. The law isn't a popularity contest. Ms. Leavitt, my job is to apply the Constitution and statutes as written, not to poll the public. The Medicaid Act doesn't bend to public opinion. It's a law passed by Congress. If you want to change it, that's Congress's job, not mine. A reporter from NBC, Garrett Hock, raised his hand. Ms. Leavitt, you've been corrected before on factual errors, like when you misstated Judge Boasberg's appointment history. Are you confident in your critique of Justice Jackson's legal reasoning? Leavitt's jaw tightened. I stand by what I said. The administration's position is clear. We won't let activist judges derail our agenda. Justice Jackson's dissent is just one example. Jackson stepped closer to the microphone, her voice steady but forceful. Let's talk about activist judges. Ms. Leavitt, you've used that term to dismiss any ruling that challenges this administration. I've ruled against both Democratic and Republican administrations when the law demanded it. As a district judge, I struck down parts of President Trump's policies when they violated federal law. I also upheld policies when they were lawful. That's not activism. That's judging. Leavitt tried to interrupt. Justice, the American people. Jackson cut her off, her tone firm. The American people deserve a judiciary that follows the law, not one that bends to political pressure. You've accused me of pushing a liberal agenda. Let's look at my record. In American Federation of Government Employees, VFLRA, I ruled that a federal agency's changes to collective bargaining violated the law. That protected workers' rights, not a political party. In Wyoke Technology v. Republic of Iraq, I upheld contract law principles, siding with the defense contractor. Those aren't liberal or conservative outcomes, they're legal ones. Leavitt's frustration boiled over. You can cite all the cases you want. Justice, the American people see through it. They know when judges are playing politics. Jackson's eyes flashed with controlled intensity. Ms. Leavitt, you're not arguing with me, you're arguing with the rule of law. If you think my rulings are wrong, appeal them. That's how the system works. But calling me an activist because you disagree with my reasoning is lazy. It's an attack on judicial independence. The room exploded with questions. Reporters shouted over each other, but Jackson raised a hand, silencing them. Let me finish. The Supreme Court isn't a political playground. My dissents aren't written for headlines, they're written for the law. If you want to criticize me, read my opinions. Engage with the statutes, the precedents, the Constitution. Otherwise, you're just shouting into the void. Leavitt, visibly shaken, tried to regain control. Justice Jackson, this administration respects the judiciary, but we won't stand by while judges overstep their bounds. The president has made that clear. Jackson's response was swift. The president doesn't get to decide the bounds of the judiciary, the Constitution does. Article 3 gives me and my colleagues the power to interpret the law, not to serve as a rubber stamp for any administration. If you think I've overstepped, file a brief, argue your case, but don't stand here and dismiss my work without evidence. The briefing room was a powder keg. Reporters tweeted furiously, clips of the exchange already going viral. #Jackson schools Leavitt trended within minutes. Leavitt, sensing the moment slipping away, tried to pivot. Let's move on to the next question. This isn't about one justice, it's about the bigger picture. But the reporters weren't done. A journalist from the New Republic pressed Leavitt. You've suggested arresting judges who rule against the administration. Are you implying Justice Jackson could face that? Leavitt hesitated, caught off guard. That's not what I said. I was talking about a specific case in Milwaukee, where a judge obstructed federal law enforcement. I'm not threatening anyone. Jackson seized the moment. Ms. Leavitt, you've called for impeaching judges who rule against the president. You've refused to rule out arresting federal judges, even Supreme Court justices. That's not a hypothetical, it's a threat to the separation of powers. The judiciary isn't your enemy. It's a co-equal branch of government. Undermine it, and you undermine the Constitution. Leavitt's voice rose, defensive. We're not undermining anything. We're protecting the American people from judges who think they're above the law. Jackson's response was calm but devastating. No one is above the law, not me, not you, not the president. My job is to ensure the law is followed, even when it's inconvenient. If you think I'm wrong, prove it in court. But stop attacking the judiciary to score political points. The room fell silent. Leavitt, outmatched, shuffled her notes. I think we're done here, she said, stepping away from the podium. Jackson remained, her gaze steady, as reporters swarmed her with questions. The exchange lit up social media. Clips of Jackson's measured takedowns spread like wildfire, with commentators praising her defense of judicial independence. Ketanji Brown Jackson just gave a masterclass in law and logic, one user tweeted. Another wrote, Leavitt didn't know what hit her. #rule of law. Leavitt's team scrambled to control the narrative, but the damage was done. Her accusation of judicial activism had backfired, exposing her lack of engagement with Jackson's legal reasoning. The administration's attacks on the judiciary faced new scrutiny, with pundits questioning whether Leavitt's rhetoric crossed a line. Jackson, meanwhile, returned to the Supreme Court, her focus unshaken. Her memoir, Lovely One, had just been published, detailing her journey as the first black woman on the court. The briefing room cliché only added to her reputation as a fierce defender of the Constitution. The viral moment wasn't just a win for Jackson, it was a reminder of the judiciary's role in checking power. As the nation watched, one thing was clear. Ketanji Brown Jackson wasn't here to play politics. She was here to uphold the law.